This episode of the All About Nothing podcast is sponsored by listeners like you and Big Media LLC, encouraging you to check your voter registration. In a world where every voice counts, ensuring your registration is accurate and up to date is the simplest, most effective way to guarantee your vote is heard. Don't leave your participation to chance. Take a moment today and verify your status and stay ready for the next election by visiting theallaboutnothing.com/voter.
Hey, it's Zach from What the Pod Was That and the All About Nothing podcast. And America's birthday is coming up faster than we can track. Celebrate Independence Day in style with ZJZ Designs' latest t-shirt collection on TeePublic. Introducing 3 brand new 4th of July heart designs that perfectly capture the spirit of America. These shirts feature vibrant, patriotic colors and unique heart-shaped designs that stand out at any celebration. Whether you're heading to a fireworks show, a barbecue, or just enjoying the summer sun, our 4th of July heart collection has something for everyone. Show off your love for the red, white, and blue with ZJZ Design. Visit ZJZ Design's TeePublic shop today and get ready to shine this Independence Day. Links in the show notes or visit ZJZDesigns.com and check out all the great designs. New designs come up often. ZJZDesigns.com.
The All About Nothing podcast may have language and content
that isn't appropriate for some. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, Nothingers, to the All About Nothing podcast. This is episode number 312. I'm Barrett Gruber, host. Also, you can follow me across all social media at Barrett Gruber. Please subscribe and share the show is how we get new listeners. Also, please consider supporting the show financially by visiting theallaboutnothing.com and becoming an official member. We'll talk about more of that at the end of the program. But if you can't do that, please give us a 5-star review, a like, follow us wherever it is you're listening. You can find links at theallaboutnothing.com. So my guest this week is started doing local radio at 13, and by 17, he'd already built 2 podcasts and logged over 100 interviews with footballers, agents, coaches, and managers from around the world. He hosts Inside the Mind Of and co-founded The Boot Room. He is studying journalism at Global Academy in the UK, and on the side, he's running a charity that supports youth football program in Kenya. He also gets a real interest in politics. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff here. Please welcome to the show from the UK, Jamie McCreedy. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolute pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. You mentioned it's hot. Are we already watched Jeremy Clarkson's Farm for this season, and apparently last year it was also hot. So this year's it's already kicked off to another hot summer.
Absolutely has. It is so hot here, and you know what? It's come out of nowhere. It was really hot for a period of time. It's gone cold. Now it's just so hot. So it's muggy. I don't know if you know what that term is, but it's just horrible.
Yeah. So I live in South Carolina. Our humidity, I've got a weather station on top of the house, and I think the humidity today is like 60s or 70, something like that. But like earlier this week, we had a tropical storm come through here, and our humidity was about 90%. The temperature was at like 95 degrees, which they call it the real feel, which makes it about 102, 103 degrees is what it feels like. All I know is it feels like you're walking through soup, and it's uncomfortable. And as a larger guy, you sweat from everywhere, and it's rather unpleasant. All right, so tell us about yourself. You are about to turn 18 years old. You've done radio. You've got these 2 podcasts. Again, the name of them, Inside the Mind Of and The Boot Room. How did this all come about, and what is it that keeps you going at such a young age?
Well, yeah, it's 2 really good questions. The first one, obviously, that I found was Inside the Mind Of. And actually, I was looking back at some old voice messages this morning at like 3 a.m. And my podcast, the first person I properly spoke to on this podcast was called Jordan Gibbs. Jordan's been a big part of my story. And I tried to get someone else on the podcast to sort of co-host it with me from day one. And I suppose, everything happens for a reason. And he didn't end up coming on this co-host. So I just interviewed Jordan, and then it just came about from there. Obviously, I'll get really nervous before someone joined, and it would be the most awkward time ever at times. And I even listened back to some of the voice notes when I was reaching out to people, which obviously now I don't do. I'd rather message, and I just sounded completely different to what I did now. Obviously, the voice has got a tiny bit deeper. Saying that, though, my voice was pretty deep back then. But I just sounded very boring. And hopefully, I've decided to change that a tiny bit. And then the Boot Room podcast. So, sorry, just Inside the Mind Of is a challenge to interview someone from every country in the world. And the Boot Room podcast has been really interesting because I've done co-hosting with that. So it's the first time ever I've done co-hosting really, with my mate who is Harry Hennings. And we do a lot of co-hosting work together, and it's a very similar concept, speak to people about their career. And we've managed to do that in person. So we've had a load of people fly out to London to come into studio with us.
Okay. So I did co-host this show for a number of years with my friend Zach. He's on a hiatus right now, but do you find that like co-hosting is something that comes naturally? Do you feel like the chemistry that the two of you have, like you recognize when he's going to speak or what it is that like you feed off of what it is that he says?
Completely. Yeah, it's a really good question. So it changed, I would say about maybe around a year ago. It used to be me who got a lot of the guests in. So I would usually be in the hot seat interviewing someone, and then I would either pick or it would be sort of a wheel, and then the other person would join me. So it wasn't always Harry. And then it's now become myself and Harry. And yeah, I think with me, I am the same on and off camera. So if you meet me in person, I'll be the same as I am. And I think for a lot of people, that's really tough. And I think that Harry coming into it, who's obviously my co-host, it was new to it, and he's finding his feet. I think he's starting to get there now. And it's really good for him, I think, to be able to speak to his mate on and off camera about things. And yeah, I think we're getting there. And we often have this thing where I'll ask a question and then Harry will ask a question and I'll ask it. In person, it's a bit easier because you haven't got the connection lag. So sometimes I've got this saying that Harry's Wi-Fi is absolutely appalling, which it is. So sometimes I'll be asking a second question to follow up to keep it on the same pattern. And then Harry might butt in because of the Wi-Fi, and then it's that awkward moment. But it's always quite funny in the end.
Yeah, that's one of the easy things about actually having somebody like in person in front of you, is you can kick them under the table, or
Yes.
or we used to have a co-host that for some reason would like to wear a mask in the studio, and it's like, we're paying for studio time, and the quality of the sound coming out of your mouth with a mask on isn't great. It's you got into, I guess you were on local radio at 13. Was that just sort of the kicker? Was that what progressed?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think I tried to join a local radio station called East Herts Radio.
Yeah.
So I'm in a place called Hertfordshire. So it's the east of that place, as you can imagine. And the station, well, it wasn't very good. My head teacher at the time was there, or principal, and I think he left. So I went for this interview about an hour long. The guy at the station said, "You've got the job." And I never want to talk badly about anyone in any industry or any walk of life, but you could see a pattern that they have 10 shows on, and then in a month's time, they're all different people. And then, it changes. And for me, I never really got on board with that. I think I don't even know how it ended. I think I went to my head teacher to say, please may you get me on the radio. Ended up going to Unite Radio, which I was there for about 3 or 4 years. But I got really bored of that, at Unite Radio, because I came home after playing football or soccer on a Sunday, and I'd have to come home and I'd have to read off a script. And as I always say, if you're trying to record a pre-recorded show that's an hour long, you're going to be there for 2 hours, probably more. And I've never really listened to any of them back recently, but I'm sure there'd be a lot to critique. And I just didn't enjoy it. And now I'm doing the podcast with other people. And I spoke to some friends actually at that time, and I said, I'm so bored. I'd rather do anything else. But that was actually a really good turning point, because they said to me, I'll just, leave it then. Why don't you? Because we were, maybe 14 at the time. So I don't think that they understood that it could become a career. And my parents were like, no, we don't often say no to things, or in this instance, but, you got to keep on with it. So I adapted, and it became a joy ever since.
When I started in radio, I was an on-air DJ, so music and things like that. But I also, I worked at a small radio station when I got my first full-time gig, which was, I had a morning show, which was also responsible for doing like community affairs interviews and things like that with notable people in the community. And I enjoyed it, but at the same time, same sort of thing. Even though it was a 4-hour show, I was still, for the most part, just reading something somebody else wrote. Interacting with people on the phone during a live show is absolutely, it's great in a sense, but then sometimes you get the same callers every single time. A lot of the time people would call up requesting music, and I had no control over the music we played. It was all done in the computer. So somebody would call and be like, "Can you play Garth Brooks?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, it's coming up next." But I would save every single one of the recordings, because I wanted to make sure that, like, if Garth Brooks for some reason came up in the music, then I could play their clip. Then people thought, oh, he is playing the music we're requesting. It was
Smart.
manipulative.
Yeah. And you know, I think that it's really interesting because I think anything you do in life, if you keep doing it, it's going to eventually become quite repetitive and probably boring.
Yeah.
Because I found myself the other month thinking, I want to get back into radio and I want to not convert the podcast, but I want to take Harry with me and do a radio show so we can take callers because there is actually a difference between podcasting and live radio in the sense that, well, I don't really know what the sense is in all fairness. I think it's a lot more energetic, it's shorter, it's snappier, it's more to the point, and I think I like that a bit more.
I think also I get to see how many people are listening or at least downloading and listening. So that, that's a fairly big difference when it comes to like being able to do radio. But I'll admit, like if somebody could pay me enough money, I would do radio every day. I've even offered to do it for free because, I think the one thing I don't like about doing like local like radio is having to report the weather, because the weather for me is one of the most boring things to report. And then on the radio, you're spread out over 60, 70 miles in either direction. You have people that will call up and be like, no, it's not raining at my house. Great. Well, I'm in a box with no windows, so I don't know what it's actually doing outside. I'm getting a line feed off of the internet that's telling me what the weather is. And so if it's right, then it's right. If it's wrong, then I get to hear from everybody. Plus, I did it in Atlanta, and Atlanta is a much larger city than most places as far as the expanse, as far as like radio coverage. And I'd have people calling from the other side, like the other side of the border with Alabama. And it was just, I would just get so annoyed after like 10 or 15 people telling me, correcting me on the weather. It's like, I get it. I'm not where you live. Thank you very much. Well, let me ask you this. Being that it is the World Cup, do you find that a lot of your focus on your shows right now is pertaining to the World Cup?
I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people that we speak to, we speak to them about their careers. So the other day, the most recent guest we had on was a Grenadian international. So it's a small island in the Caribbean. And we spoke to him about his footballing career. I think we did touch upon the World Cup just a tiny bit. But we don't really have the facilities for that, in all fairness. I think the boot room's not really made for that. Inside the Mindell's not made for that. But I did speak to a few people in the lead up from about 5 or 6 countries, maybe a few more actually, speaking about their country's hopes and dreams for the World Cup. But that was good fun because that was a shorter, more snappy 15-minute take. But yeah, the World Cup it's a weird one. Obviously, I love football, but it's I'm not in the swing of everything yet. It doesn't quite feel like the World Cup.
I understand. Yeah, well, it's so early in it. Like we've still got what, 30, 26 days, something like that. Like it's a ridiculous amount of time. I know that it's in some of the bigger cities where it's going on here in the United States, it's definitely taking up a lot of what's going on. I'm a fan of like the city of Boston, and one of the things that we've been inundated with as far as social media goes is the number of Scots that have come over to Boston, and they talk about. I think earlier this week there was an announcement that basically Boston had run out of beer because all of the Scots had come over, and I'm like, there's no way they're drinking that slug. I mean, it's not good to drink. So, and I'm not even a fan of beer, but I've been to Ireland, and I've had Guinness at the Guinness storehouse. I think that's what it was called. But so like there's a difference between the beer here and the beer in Europe and things like that. So you played football for? Do you still play football?
I did until so now I did. So last season is the last season that I most recently played. I mean, I only started playing when I was about 13, maybe 12, and I didn't play because I had a toe injury, so I just didn't play for the year. That's
fair. I know what injuries do to potential careers, so absolutely get that. When it comes to like doing the podcast and these interviews, like, do you do a lot of like research into the people that you're going to have on the show, and like how in depth do you go? Do you use social media, things like that to ask questions off of? So one way that how I'd say it is if you speak to someone who has managed in the Championship, right? So the second tier of England is their biggest level, so they have a lot to speak about.
for them, I always try and find a lot of niche details because, they know that they've played for Swindon or Watford or Liverpool, whoever it might be. They know that. But I want to try and dig into their brains and speak about the time that they fly to Russia and they had to divert to Kazakhstan or something. I like those wackier journeys. But then for the people who have just started out in their career, and there's obviously a lot less to talk about, we just speak about their career in normal, and then it's really up to them to tell me about their stories and what they have in the locker.
Did you find it hard because at your age, obviously very young, when you look at the field of people that are doing journalism and sports especially, did you find it difficult to be taken seriously in the industry?
Yes, but I think now looking back at it, it was my mistake. It was 100% my mistake. So the first thing that I did was I sent out these every time I connected with someone on LinkedIn who's in the football industry that I'd like to interview. I'd send them out a generic message, hi, I'm Jamie or whatever. I want you to come on my podcast to speak about your career. But the first thing I remember doing was when I got yeses, I then get them onto WhatsApp because it is just easier. But then I always said, it doesn't matter how big they are. I never took that into account. I'd say, right, Barrett, could you please send me over everything about your career, your CV, every link that you've ever done?
Right.
So they're basically half doing the notes for me. So there was a few people that turned around to me, probably in the not, the nicest of ways, and said basically to go away. But then there's been some other people who have, been a bit fairer with me and said, I'm not going to do that. It's up to you to do, which is 100% true. I'm the journalist. But yeah, that's a lesson learned. So
yeah. I think the way that I approach most of them is I'll go and pull some information, but for the most part, I want it just to be a conversation between two people.
Yeah.
I think that for the most part is more engaging. Having, I'm sitting here with a list of 19 questions or so that ultimately can lead a conversation, but to have that strict, just attachment to this script and things like that just makes it feel very canned. And for some people listening, wherever they're listening, it comes across as not genuine, maybe. And I've gotten comments on occasion from people just asking, was I talking to an AI bot or something like that, which I'll profess I've done before, mostly because I think that it would be interesting to have a conversation with a chat GPT bot or something like that. But no, I'm like, no, they're real people and they're running for office. So it becomes a very, it's mostly just about getting to know somebody and really just allowing for the audience to get to know them. What's the actual difference between the way that you approach Inside the Mind and the boot room?
Yeah, Inside the Mind, by the way, is the hardest thing to say, so I completely understand it. I should probably get the name changed, but oh well.
No. It's catchy.
Okay, good to hear. The difference is the boot room is co-hosted by myself and Harry. We're kind of the face of the brand, if you like. It's not much of a brand, but there we go. And Inside the Mind of's just myself. So taking that advice on board is 100% what I will do, because I'll sit here with my notes. Now, I used to actually write them down on a piece of paper, but now they're on my phone, so they'll be here, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously everything develops over time, and I think I should open my brain up a tiny bit more to other podcasts and see how they run things, because I've always thought, you're getting someone on a podcast, surely they're just there to speak about their career or what they've done. So I need to take that advice on board and try and expand my horizons. But at the same time, the football industry and people involved in there are quite often known to not be the most outspoken. So it's quite hard. And sometimes you do need to provide it with some sort of backing.
Yeah, because I look at I will occasionally have somebody who is involved in sports and things like that, but I've found those interviews to be difficult in a sense, because sometimes they're not somebody that has a very outward personality, or maybe they don't, they'll think about some of the questions that that have been asked of them, but sometimes they're potentially thinking about something else, their next gym time or their training or who it is that they're going to meet after this, or whatever. And sometimes it's difficult leading that conversation on from the perspective of being an interviewer with the interviewee who is ultimately not really interested in being there. So sometimes that becomes a distraction, and then I'm thinking about that, and then I'm starting to think about, am I ever going to put this one out? And that happens. I've got interviews that I've done with people that I've never actually put out. I've never published because I didn't think that they would be interesting. Inside the Mind of, by the way, I think is a great name because it doesn't just pigeonhole you into one specific topic. I noticed that some of the things that you seem to be interested in is politics. Have you done anything with Inside the Mind of to try and like speak to politicians? I know it seems like England is, or well, the UK, Great Britain. I'm trying to think. It's okay. Just from a high altitude, the UK is England and Scotland and Northern Ireland, and then
Wales as well.
And Wales, right?
Mm.
Oh, I want to ask about Wrexham too, but from that high altitude, I guess is it interesting? Politics, the UK, it does seem like England holds elections often. Is it? Am I observing something that isn't really going on? But it always feels like it's you know, the PMs are calling for a vote to, and I know Starmer. I know that, you know, he's under scrutiny right now because I'm not exactly certain. I'm not exactly certain what it is he does or doesn't do wrong, but it does seem like people are not happy with him often. Here in the United States, our elections are just completely, they're focused on exact dates. Like we have a general election that we'll have for the midterm elections, which will basically potentially elect in a bunch of new congressmen. But it's always, the general election is always on the first Tuesday it's always on the first Tuesday of the month of November. That's it. We have special elections to replace people sometimes, but for the most part, our president gets replaced our president gets elected every 4 years. But like, have you given, is there a space for politics in your podcast?
Yeah, 100%. You know, speaking about politics whenever you like with me, because I'm very interested in it. It's actually got to a point where it's maybe overtaking how much I like to speak to footballers, because I really like speaking to politicians.
Yeah.
So I've spoke to 10, maybe 15, and that doesn't sound like many compared to the 150 that I've interviewed, but that's taken time to build. It's probably the same in any country, including the States, that it's so hard to get hold of a member of parliament or Congress or the Senate or the House of Representatives, whatever it might be. So for me, it's really, really tough.
Yeah.
So I've spoken to as many as I can, but I've also tried to eye up people that have run to become a member of parliament in the last election or recent by-elections, which is if someone steps down, then it's another election in the area takes place. Because I think to myself, I'm trying to build up a network of people. They're interesting, and they have the experience which I want to try and hold on and potentially run in the future in whatever election it might be. And yeah, I mean, in the UK, I completely understand your point that we are often having elections, and it is difficult because regardless of what party you support, we can all see that that there's been a lot of prime ministers in the United Kingdom in the last few years, which isn't decided by the general public. So every time, so let's say Keir Starmer, or because we have a different way of doing things, the guy who just won in Makerfield is called Andy Burnham, right? The seat up north in Manchester. And usually if someone had a by-election, they wouldn't be considered anyone. But Andy Burnham's quite a well-known name. If he pulls together 80 MPs out of, goodness me, I mean, I don't know how many Labour have got, but they're in probably the 300s, 400s. They've got a lot of MPs. If he gets 80 of those MPs to say that we want Andy Burnham to be Prime Minister, that calls a leadership election. Then it's up to the members of that party who have paid £5, £10 a year or whatever it is to be a member of that party to then vote. So it's not done by the general public. But in this country, one criticism, regardless of what party you support, is we have had too many prime ministers and we've had too many chopping and changing at the top, which just, ultimately doesn't matter how good your ultimatum is. You're never going to get anywhere if you change a prime minister every 2 years or the backbench. It's never going to work.
Yeah. Well, try having a president who has dementia. It's not easy. Do you just, one of the things that I have done with my podcast is that I always allow my personal beliefs and personality to come into play. And I've invited members of, I guess, the opposition party to the liberals or the progressives or whatever to come on and be a part of the show. A lot of them don't come on mostly because I think that they don't like some of the questions that I would ask of them or the debate that we would have. So I've found that it is easier to get liberals and progressives on to this show because already from the get-go, we already have a lot of the same ideas, but I don't go easy on them. I don't want anyone to think that if there is something that I think needs to be discussed, that potentially like see if it's something that they could correct about what it is that they have going on or where they stand on a policy, things like that, that if it sounds problematic to me, then it probably sounds problematic to other people. And I try to bring those issues forward, but I hate the idea of really enjoying talking about politics, but it's just one of those things that absolutely feels very important as a whole and just continues to flow. I recently gave consideration to running for office, but then decided that because politics doesn't pay very well at the local level, that it wasn't something that I could be willing to give up a day job for, because the day job is what pays the bills. Day job is what pays for the podcast. So when you look at politics from a podcast perspective, what are some of the things that you feel like you would want to achieve with doing a podcast that has politics involved in it?
Oh, good question. Well, I, by the way, I'm also considering running for public office, but I want to put that out there. So feel free to speak about all of that. But yeah, I think it's really interesting because I often find that liberals are a bit easier to speak to, but in the UK, I've got a lot of people on the right on as well. So for me, so far, there has been quite a mix. But yeah, it's very interesting because you have to be quite fair with who you're speaking to, and I try and be fair. So I'm not associated with the party of this member of parliament, new guy, 24 years old, elected in 2024 under this Labour government who have got a huge majority. And he knows of me because we've done a podcast or a couple of podcasts before, and I've gone to some of his events. And I went for this coffee morning, and there was probably about 20 of us, and he had 2 or 3 people there from his team, and they were like, "Oh, you're that guy? Oh, the one that you interviewed." So it's nice, right? It's nice that whether Josh Dean, the MP, would have spoke to his team, I mean, they probably would have known that he's doing an interview, but it's just nice that they knew me by the face. But I also said to Josh, and so he is someone that I admire because he's a young guy, doesn't matter what the party is. I think he's trying hard. And this is one thing that people get wrong about politics. We all can have criticisms of everyone, Trump included, but we all should look at each other and think, well, you try and look at each other. I know with Trump it might be a tiny bit harder, but understand that you are trying to do a job for the people that have elected you. And it's easier to work together than it is to be divided. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, by the way. But so I said to Josh, I said, look, you're a big inspiration to me. It's not easy the job you're doing. And going back to Andy Burnham, the guy who won in Manchester or near Manchester, I said, congratulations on winning that. It's something I wouldn't say to an opposition, but congratulations. And then it got brought up in the end by my friend who came with me to the coffee morning. And my mate Brad said to the MP, sorry, let me word this correctly. I said, I'm going to be running for public office next year at local level. And the MP went, oh, so what party? And I said, it's the Conservative Party, so the opposite party of centre-right party. And it was really interesting because Josh said to me, look, if you ever need anything, let me know. And whether Josh will help me, I'd like to hope he does. It's hard for him because he's under party lines. He can't support an opposition at all. But it's nice to know that you can have these civil conversations. And even before that got brought up, I said to him, I've been fair on you, just like I think you'd be fair on me if I was in your position. We have to be fair. And there's criticisms of everyone, but it's about trying to work together.
Yeah, that's one of the things that like even friends I have that are conservatives or that vote Republican or that voted for Trump 3 times, I don't just cast them aside because of their political views or their opinions and things like that, because ultimately that just creates more division. But and ultimately, I also think that it's important to have those conversations because I know I'm not right about everything. I know I may think that I want to be right about everything or that my opinion should be what everyone should think, but it's not. And ultimately, the only way to take into consideration a lot of what you don't know is to have those conversations or to have those friendships with people that oppose some of your views. And so I completely get that. I I don't want to say that I'm a Democrat because I think that sometimes the Democrats get things wrong. I definitely don't want to say I'm a Republican because I don't want people on the planet hating me because they think I voted for Trump. That's a difficult place to be in. But so what is it you're thinking? It sounds like you've already made the decision. You are running for politics. What is the position that or have you announced it yet? If you haven't announced it yet, you don't. Announcing it here is not going to get the UK to jump behind you. But
no, it's yeah. I suppose the cat's out of the hat, if that's the saying. In the local party, the town that we're in, they would be quite happy for the majority of people to stand, right, providing that you get the clearance to do so. I'm an admirer of politics, and I understand why people are disappointed. I really, really do. But I also understand why people also have the opinion that voting means nothing because they don't see change and they don't see anything happening. And I'm not saying that I'm the man to make the difference of the world, but hopefully I can try and make some sort of change. And there's, again, criticisms that you can take of everyone that you can learn off and try and build a campaign on, which will ultimately have criticisms, right? I'm not saying that won't happen. So yeah, I think you're correct in saying that. I've been pretty adamant to try and start the early campaigning as much as I possibly can. So the elections are probably going to happen in May next year, depending on the Labour government, what happens in terms of reorganisation, because they want to make it a bit easier for everyone to understand what their local panel does. This area used to be Conservative. It's no longer Conservative. We've got a Labour MP for the first time ever, and that's around every 4 years that gets elected, unless you call an early election. And then at town level, it's used to be pretty Conservative. I think Liberal Democrat too. But now it's Green, so that's the sort of far left. County level it's a big mix, right? So the Conservative Party, to cut it short, are not represented very well locally. And I want to try and make that change. I think that the people of the town, the people of the county or wherever they are, would understand a young guy trying to make the place a bit better. And I think the more local you get, the less division there is compared to party lines, because what I'm doing in my local town is not going to affect the Prime Minister's job. So you would like to hope that, hopefully I can win, and I'm not going in it to lose. So yeah.
Yeah. How much support are you getting from family and friends as far as going that direction?
So it's interesting. So I said to my friends not long ago that if I was to run to be a member of Parliament in the future, would you vote for me? They all said no. And
what?
Yeah. Let me be completely honest. Let me be honest with you.
They sound like my friends.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not saying that I wouldn't. So if my friend, so one of them supports the Green Party, right? So the far left, I'm in the centre right. If he said that he was going to run to be a member of Parliament, I would like to think that I would support him, regardless of my party, because he's my friend. You support your friends, and you would like to think that we could have the conversation, and I have a foot through that door to be able to try and change some things that I think is wrong. And they all said to me, "We're not going to vote for you." And do you know the thing that would be really disappointing for me is if they don't vote at all. If they decide to not cast a vote and say, "I'm just not going to do it, I can't be bothered," I would then start to consider who I'm hanging around with. If they are really supportive. Family have said, politics is a tough board game, and you're not going to be liked by probably anyone, or everyone is the same. But what do you think? You got something?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that is absolutely one of the most difficult things that I have, and it sounds like it's something that goes on in the UK too. Is that here in the States, I would say probably somewhere in 1 in 5 friends that I have is just not politically active, and I think active is the right word. It's not necessarily that they're against politics or anything like that, but they don't go and vote. They registered to vote when they got their driver's license, but they don't actually show up and vote. And a lot of it has to do with just based on talking to them. I mean, I did an interview recently with just a couple of friends of mine that we sat down, and one of the things we discussed was politics and why they don't get involved. And it's just like I couldn't be bothered. It's just not something I care about. And and he ultimately in the end, we're going to have another sit down and have to discuss some things because we've gotten through our primaries and things like that. And I want to see, I don't want to ask him before, but I want to ask him on the show, did you show up for the primary? Did you vote in the runoffs? Did you do anything? Is there any candidate that even sounds like someone that you would potentially want to align yourself with, not necessarily because you agree with everything, but because, when it comes to a weight and balance, do they have more value to you than, say, someone else? And because that's one of those things that, like, the only way that we can move things in a direction that we want is if either me run for office, or we back and elect people that believe in the same things we believe in. Because here in the United States, man, we have so many people that vote against their interests. The number of people that depend on the government for things like their welfare, so food and health care, and then vote for a party that considers them to be just a stain on the side of the road, that they're constantly threatening to take away their social services that are helping them survive, and then 4 years later they vote for them again. It's the craziest thing. And I don't know, it seems like the UK's really got its shit together when it as far as like the healthcare from outside, like healthcare, the universal healthcare that you all have. It for some reason here in the States, we look at it and we go, they seem to know what they're doing. The amount of money that the UK makes in taxes and things like that is far less than we make here in the United States. How is it that they make it work and we can't seem to agree on how to make it work? Like, we have role models. I don't get it.
Well, let's speak about healthcare. So obviously we've got the National Health Service, and it's a service that it is free at the point of use, which I believe and I think you would like to have. And I always believe that should be the case. Doesn't matter how rich or poor you are, you should be able to afford healthcare. Even literally coming up to an anniversary, I suppose, of my mum last year, she had a major heart operation that she would have had to pay, I'm sure, a lot of money for in other countries. So she's grateful. I'm grateful for that. But it's really difficult because you say that we've got our shit together. It's not quite like that. If I wanted to get an appointment with a GP to speak about acne that I used to have, the amount of GP appointments I would need to have to be referred is silly. Not only that, if I don't call, so we have this thing called emergency appointments, which you've got to wake up at 8 a.m. for, call your local surgery and hope that someone's cancelled the night before and they've got 5 slots available in that day. And even then you might not get the answer that you want. So there's a lot of problems with the health service, and we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough doctors, we have not a lot of everything. And it's a real shame because a lot of people use it in a divisive way to say that, so the Labour government, for example, they've said that they've had a lot more appointments than what they did under the previous government. Whether that's true or false, for me, it feels, whether I've seen those statistics or not, I still can't get a GP appointment, and it's been the exact same length of GP appointment wait than it has been for the last 5-10 years. So for me, on ground level, it doesn't feel like anything's improved. Nothing can improve overnight, but we have a National Health Service that is helped a lot by immigration, which is not spoken about enough. And there's a few parties that do want to hammer down on that, and it would ultimately really impact the National Health Service, which is a real shame. But yeah, going back to your question, it's free, but it takes a long time to get what you want.
See, and I think that's one of the things that I guess we just don't understand here in the States, because and it's not that much different. Private healthcare, through my employer, or even if I had Medicaid, like sometimes it's if it's not an emergency, then the likelihood is that I've scheduled an appointment. That appointment's probably going to be 2 weeks to a month out. And then even though I have private insurance, that doesn't mean that I just get to go to the doctor. It means that I get to go to the doctor, and then I have a deductible that I have to meet. And until I meet my deductible, I'm having to pay full price for what it is that I'm going to see them for. And doctor's office here, it could cost you $190, $200 just to go in for 30 minutes for them to check your heart and be like, I'm going to up your blood pressure medication or something like that. And I look at that and I'm like, why can't this be better? But it sounds like, and I think one of the things that we do hear about in the States is places like Canada or the UK is that sometimes if it's not an emergency, it's likely something that you have to go through hoops just to make it happen. Like my dentist visits to get a dental cleaning every year and check my teeth and make sure I don't have cavities or I haven't done something. Again, those get scheduled 6 months out. And I'd ultimately, every time I leave the dentist office, this is going to sound like a complaint. It's not. But every time I leave the dentist office, I have to go ahead and make sure that I've got that next one scheduled, or I might miss my opportunity to get in there. Like, we have tons of doctors, but that's one of the things here in the States we hear over and over is that doctors are leaving their specialties, or they're leaving their field because they can make more doing IT work or working marketing or something like that. Like, it didn't occur to me that even in the UK, doctor shortages are a real thing. But so this is another question. Education at higher levels, is it actually free if you are? Yeah, you're shaking your head no. Here we go. Let's go.
This is one thing.
Fix my impression.
Sure. So this is one thing that needs fixing. And it's something that I was obviously considering as a young guy, just finished college. So the next step would be university. You can spend, I think it's about 3, 4, maybe even 5 years at university if you wanted to do some extra courses. And in the United Kingdom, I know people that are paying £9,000 a year just for the course, £130 a week for a room. And that's not even speaking about drinks or food or a lifestyle that they want to live. And so those same people have then been telling me that they're going to be spending 10 hours a week inside the classroom. 10 hours a week for that money is insane. It used to be free. And for some reason, governments don't make that their first priority. I can understand why it costs money, but £9,000 a year. And a lot of people, it's not even about fixing the system. It's about fixing the way people think. Because a lot of people think that, okay, university is the next step once I leave college or sixth form, because that's the way I do it. I know too many people who are going to be studying history at university that want to go on and firstly may not even know what they want to do, or they're studying history because that's just what their parents told them to do. They're studying history because they want to be a PE teacher. It doesn't make sense. Now, there are people, of course, that need university for a lot of jobs. But
Doctors,
there's also,
lawyers,
of course, but there's ways around it. But
yeah. Oh.
There are ways.
Yeah.
There's not many of them, but there are ways. But I just do not see the point, especially I know someone, for example, who is going to a university to do the same course that he's basically been doing for the last few years, and he's been bored to hell about it. So now I said, why do you want to go and do it again? I said, now you're doing it, but instead of just doing it, you're now paying £9,000 a year plus every other additional cost. It's a business. University is a business, and it is a real disappointment that people have got to pay for it and put themselves in lifelong debt. And they say, I don't exactly know the figure. I think it might be you need to earn £25,000 a year to be paying it back. That is basically minimum wage. So I could be working at a very low income job and still paying it off.
We're talking $25,000 a year, or £25,000 a year over your salary that supports you to live. Is that what we're saying? Or do you just mean £25,000 a year to be able to pay that back?
Yeah, so that I think is the minimum you've got to earn a year to be able to be in that category. So to be, okay, let's pay it back. If you earn minimum wage, for example, I don't know, I think minimum wage is £20,000 a year, you don't pay it back then. But that's the catch. They say you don't need to pay it back until you're much older. And then what happens is, which is even more of a scam, because they say to you, if you haven't paid it off by, I don't know what the age is, but let's say you haven't paid it off by 60, the debt then gets wiped. If you've gone to university, in my opinion, if you've gone to university and you've studied to be a doctor and you haven't taken on that profession, you're guaranteed to be paid well, right?
Yeah.
If you're a doctor. And people are going to university and they're being enthralled by what I think is essentially just a scam or a play on words, and they don't quite know what they're getting themselves into.
We're in the same boat. I think that when it comes to, like, I understand that there are some professions that probably require going to college or going to university in order to get what you need in order to do it. Doctor, absolutely. If you're going to be a nurse, 100%. I think there are available nursing programs that will get you to the point where you can do it. But in order to be an RN, I think you have to work in a hospital for a certain amount of time. And we have teaching hospitals and education hospitals here in the United States, specifically designed in order to do that. I'm sure they have them in other places. But I ultimately, like, I have a 20-year-old son, Jamie, but he actually just got into he is in school to go to welding, but it's a trade. It's not, you don't have to go to college or even a technical college or things like that. They have programs that you can get into, and you have to pay for it. You have to pay for the school. But, like, I think there should absolutely be more focus on like the trades. I get that we're moving into this IT world where AI is going to do a lot of jobs and things like that, but I can't imagine a situation where a skilled laborer that does welding or that does roofing or things like that, I can't imagine a situation where we're going to replace those workers with robots or something like that. Is that are you hearing a lot of things in the UK about fear of artificial intelligence or fear of data centers and things like that?
Yeah, of course. And it's really hard to, I mean, I can understand that perhaps a bricklayer or someone who builds a roof isn't going to be taken over by AI, but it does question a lot of other things, right? I mean, who knows, in 15 years' time, you could just be talking to, as you said earlier, ChatGPT, and that could be a podcast. And it is somewhat dangerous because it's not even AI. I mean, it's just technology as a whole. So there's a lot of kids these days, and obviously I'm still a kid, right? But for another like 5 days or whatever it is.
Hey, you can drink. I don't think,
Yeah, you're right. But a lot of young people are on their phones a lot more. And I can, maybe because I'm in the media industry, maybe because I speak to adults, I don't know. But I can really look at someone and just think, this is a problem. You are on your phone 13 hours a day. And then every time you're not on your phone, you're thinking about what you're going to do when you're on your phone. And I mean, it's just the same. Go and touch some grass, go outside, enjoy life. And it is hard, don't get me wrong. I think we all have this tendency to go on our phones and watch YouTube and play Fortnite, whatever you might do. But it does get to a point where you think to yourself, you know, you only live once, right? And the amount of hours that we're burning is damaging. And AI as a whole as well is damaging. It's taking over jobs like graphic design and things like that. And it can be a helpful tool, but it can also damage careers.
As a Brit, and I ask this specifically for me, given the idea that Donald Trump doesn't want to ever leave the White House, even though I still think he's on 45 days of borrowed time, like he should have died years ago, but he's still here. What are some of the friendlier countries that I should consider moving to in Europe? And I say that just know. So my lineage is I have a fair amount of Austrian. What gave it away?
The surname.
Some Barrett is French, and then also the Gruber lineage. Actually, we were from Finland and Norway. But we didn't come over to the States. My grandparents, my grandfather's family is all Scottish, and I have Crillies in the family that are Irish. But I'm trying to figure out which are the friendlier countries or which are the ones that I'd feel more welcome to. And UK is not the one that comes up most often. It's not that it's difficult to go there, but like even my company has an office in the UK, so that would make it easier. But like, as an aggressive American, like is UK one of the places that I would potentially want to consider?
In terms of exactly what though? In terms of safety, in terms of being able to get a visa, like
safety, I don't worry about. For me, I think that sometimes when it comes to people asking about safety, it's one of those things where it's like they're hyper focused on that. And ultimately, for me, it's not about being safety. It's where am I going to be the most viable to the community that I move to? Like, that's one of the things that I consider the most is, like, if I go to the UK, I'd probably still work at the same company I work for. Does that provide anything for the community that I'd potentially be in? If I brought my podcast and I did my podcast from one of the, I think, in the UK, we just you take a name and then just add Shire to the end of it. Is that how that works sometimes?
Oh yeah, I suppose.
Don't get me wrong, I love it. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, but you know, I want to be. I don't necessarily like interacting with everyone, but I like interacting with people that also don't like interacting with everyone. Like those are those are my. Okay. That's it then. That's it.
But I can answer your question. So the UK, although politicians might say we have more in common than what separates us, which I do think is true, and they often hammer out about communities because it is a political question, right? It is on that brink. I don't know a lot of people. I have a street of about 8 houses. I don't know anyone. No one.
Really?
Yeah, no one. and I'm in a town, so you would think that perhaps it would be that way. And I'm a loud guy. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, my neighbours are probably pissed off because my sisters, I'm a triplet by the way, right? So there's two of my sisters. I get pissed off because they're just always singing. So I can imagine why people might not want to talk to us, but we're a really outgoing family. So if you want to say hello to us, please do, whatever it might be. But I often get the interpretation that countries like Romania, in terms of a community, like if you want to experience a community, places in Eastern Europe, from my experience, are the best places to go. I think if you go to places like Spain and France, yes, you're going to have communities, but a lot of people think Spain is Madrid or France is Paris, right? I think that people should experience villages, towns, and you will get that sense of community a bit better. I mean, a lot of people would completely disagree with me and think that the UK is full of community. I wouldn't exactly call it community living in the same town, but I know other people might disagree.
Yeah, I think I see the benefit of living in a community that has, fewer than 10,000 people within, I don't know, 30 square miles. Like that seems more appealing to me.
Mine's 20,000.
20,000 in 10 square miles. See that would probably be okay. Town. That'd probably be okay. But like you said, you don't know your neighbors. That would be difficult for me.
I know the one right next door to us, but apart from that, no one else.
That would be difficult for me because I'm constantly trying to convince my neighbors to go out and vote the way that I want them to vote. Yeah. So it's,
They'll be getting that from me next year. Please vote for me.
Look, if I have the opportunity, I'll fly over there and canvass for you. We'll go door to door.
Wow.
I'd be more than happy to. That'd be, canvassing is one of those things that I thoroughly enjoy. Like I enjoyed knocking on somebody's door and then just greeting them and telling who I am and then what it is I'm there to do. It's I don't know. It's really one of those really engaging things about politics that because ultimately in the end, the hope isn't just that they're going to vote for you, but that they vote for you and then they vote for you again. So you actually have to try and keep up that connection. You're going to keep the podcast when you run for office?
Oh,
is that frowned upon to be in media as well?
So I don't think it's frowned upon. So in the local party next week, we're going to have a reorganisation, new party chairman of a local level. So they want me to be the media guy. So I'll be working with the candidate to be member of parliament when we probably decide that in October, November time is when I've been told. The communication, from what I can understand, often gets a bit muffled. It's a tiny bit frustrating at times because, as I said to you at the start, it's not me being, I'm not complaining, but we need to get a job. We have a job to do. People deserve to know who we are as a candidate, but people need to know who we are as a party at local level. And to do that in the 28 days that is officially allocated to campaign is not good enough because, a lot of people have full-time roles. The majority of people I will not see on my personal campaign, as far as I'm aware, because it's a local town campaign. But we do have the impact we do have the mandate that we can change people's lives, even if it is on a small basis. We do have that potential. And I love my town, I really do. But we have been let down by some small changes, but they're changes that a lot of people with, I think, a bit more common sense don't essentially agree with. And I don't want to get into that. I've got common sense and you haven't. Let's have a conversation, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm willing to change. In fact, I am. But currently, from things that I've seen, I have been disappointed from the most part with local level governing.
I think that's one of the things that people take away from politics is that your life is supposed to, we live in two countries, but a lot of the countries in the world believe in a lot of things that are centered around making their citizens' lives easier. And one thing that I've recognized about politics, especially in my 47 years, is that there are two things that make life harder, and that is regulation and politics. And politics makes regulation. So ultimately, it's politics that's really ruining it. I don't want to end this without talking a little bit about the Kenya charity work. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the work I did in Kenya was actually before I started a charity up in America. And that was helping about 120 boys and girls that eventually became 180 of all ages of an academy in Kenya. The first year we sent over 55 pairs of boots, and it was a great achievement because I tried to get help from my local school or the schools around me, and they said to me, no, we can't help you because you're not a registered charity. And then it moved into the second year where I sent over 115 pairs of boots, hundreds and hundreds, and probably far too much, tops and shorts and socks. I probably sent over 3 times more than the amount of children that were there. And this was off my own back, but I was working with a few local charities and people who would donate more than a couple of pairs of football boots. So that all got sent over. Then I started up a charity in America, which we just dissolved the other day, which I can go into if you'd like. But yeah, I mean, that didn't last very long, but we made some mistakes and we're going to learn from them.
What is, so so the one in the United States is dissolved, but the one in Kenya, is that something that people can still make donations to? Is there availability to help out with?
So the work in Kenya also finished probably a year ago, or just under a year. That wasn't a charity. That was just me off my own back doing it. So if people wanted to donate, they could. Yeah. And then the charity was a charity, right? It's just like any other charity.
How does it? Did you receive a lot of community support for it, or was this just you doing all of the pretty much the heavy lifting of collection and then sending, or were you sending? Were you making purchases on your own and sending?
So the people so I found out Gabriel was the guy in Kenya, right? Lion Sports Academy. I was donating boots, tops, shorts, equipment. Then I found out that Americans were donating money. The minute I heard money, I was like, okay, we're not registered. I don't know who these people were at the time, by the way.
Sure.
And they're sending money to a random guy in Africa, in Kenya. God knows what is happening to that money. And that is that is the precaution you have to take when you're sending money to anyone.
Yeah.
Because, so I think, as far as I remember, we then became sort of a pact. There was 4 of us, or maybe 5, and they were all American, donating money to the team in Kenya. And over time, we sort of, over a month or so, we did a bit of digging, and we found out that, as far as I know, the boots that I sent over, the tops, everything is there, but the money was being spent in an irresponsible way.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a story that I hear a lot of the time. And don't get me wrong, look, I think that Gabriel in Kenya is a good guy. I think he's a family man. I think that what he is doing for a lot of those children is great. But I don't know the full extent of where that money is going. We understand where some of it has gone, where it shouldn't have gone, but it's really tough to then trust someone when you've asked them to send me a list of things that has been spent with the X amount that has been received, and then the money just doesn't add up. So It ended in Kenya for that apparent reason. And I've always tried to be open and honest because I know that people face these problems as well. Then the charity happened. We got registered probably about 2 months ago. And it's going to sound really silly as to why we're dissolved now, but the Americans who we the Americans that helped the team in Kenya, we built a charity of that based in Texas. But the mistakes that were made there was a few. The first mistake was I was president of the charity, and I was living in the United Kingdom, which isn't a problem because I like to say that I was the youngest UK guy running a charity overseas in America. But it was really tough because we couldn't do a lot of fundraising. We couldn't do anything because we were very tied down to not being in America. We had to rely on the few Americans that were with us to go out there and try and spread the word. I mean, we were tax exempt, so people could literally donate instead of having tax. So it was a win-win. Yeah. Obviously, we dissolved after 2 or so months, and it ended in a bit of a I don't know what the terminology is. It ended in a way that I wouldn't have liked it to, in the most part. But I'm always trying to follow the rules. And when you're a charity and you're a legal corporation, you have to follow the rules. And that wasn't being followed.
Yeah.
So when you question when the rules aren't being followed, of course people are going to be annoyed and disappointed and angry. Why are you questioning me? I thought we were good friends, or whatever it may have been. The people in the UK that supported the charity, we're hopefully going to do some work in the UK. Hopefully we can try and set up a UK charity. But the reason why we didn't is because we had American funding at the start, and it's a lot harder to set up a charity in the UK. But the lessons that we made were incredible. There were good lessons to learn, because when else are you going to learn them? No one took a financial hit who left the charity on a good note. There's nothing to lose, really. But the people that we decided to part ways with and then ultimately end the charity, of course, I probably won't be speaking to them again.
Yeah.
reality of it.
Well, the last thing I want to ask you, and I hinted at it at the beginning of the show, was I wanted to ask about Wrexham. And I am a fan of watching, Welcome to Wrexham, which is Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds. And I enjoy the show for the stories that they tell. And, football. It's never really been like one of the sports that I've really gotten into, even though we've seen soccer or football expand across the country here in the United States because there's the popularity of it. Kids start playing football very early in age, and some of them are extremely talented. I have friends that probably spend half their salary on their 3 children playing, soccer every single day. And it's such I look at it as there's a lot of running and it's hot outside. And and baseball, you say what you will about baseball. There are games where it may be 1-0 and that's it, but I enjoy Wrexham. I enjoy watching the television program. How big of an annoyance is Wrexham for people in the UK? Because to me, it seems like it's one of those things. It's like we have all of these other football clubs in the UK that aren't getting the attention that Wrexham's getting, that aren't getting the amount of money that Wrexham's getting. Like, is it an annoyance in the UK?
I wouldn't. I've never watched Welcome to Wrexham, by the way. I'm not a big TV guy. I mean, it is something that I probably would watch, but I do prefer like those political documentaries. Welcome to Wrexham, or Wrexham as a whole, doesn't really piss anyone off in the United Kingdom, as far as I know. I think sometimes the owners can annoy a few people. I mean, I don't really care. They're owners of a football club, and let's be frank, it's not only that you in America know about Wrexham. The whole of Wrexham now knows about Wrexham because of who they are now. Like, they've built up something incredible on and off the pitch.
Yeah,
and they're earning good money from it. So fair play, and I'm sure the owners are spending their money wisely, as they have proven with their several promotions. But I think it's quite nice to see the runnings of a football club, even though I haven't actually watched it.
I know. I think Snoop Dogg, who is of course a rap artist here in the United States, now owns part of a club in the UK. Tom Brady, who was one of our American football quarterbacks, who everyone calls the GOAT. Everyone. Okay, a lot of people call him the GOAT, but he now owns part of a football club in the UK.
Birmingham, yeah.
Does it feel weird to see these Americans getting involved in what has been such a tradition for Europe as a whole?
Again, the answer is no, and I'll tell you why.
Good.
I'll tell you why, because the Premier League and English football as a whole is incredibly diverse. A lot of managers in the English football system from League One and above are not English. They're from Germany or they're from other countries. Second to that, a lot of the owners aren't English either. In fact, there's actually probably more foreign investment than there is English investment.
Sure.
So we're very used to it. And seeing people like Snoop Dogg take over at Swansea in Wales, or other people taking over at other clubs, it is quite cool to see, because we're seeing a different way that things are ran, and we're seeing more investment into the game. And again, that ultimately pushes other people to think, shit, we need an American to come and help us too.
Oh man, I don't want to. Well, it's appreciated, but it's also like, I don't know. Like, we have programs and things like that where celebrities get involved with them, and then it becomes more about the celebrity than it does the actual program, and that's the part that I always have concern with. But I don't know, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, they seem like decent guys. I enjoy both their TV and their movies. So Snoop Dogg, I've been a fan of for years. Tom Brady can eat shit. But he beat my Falcons 20. We were ahead 28-3 in the Super Bowl back in 2017. And, it takes real guts for the referees to turn the game around like that. I will defend my Falcons till the day I die. But no, it's good to hear that at least, because my fear is when Americans getting involved in things that have an attachment, have a community around it, and things. My fear is always that there's someone that it's going to look bad, or it's going to look like they're just reaching for extra fame or something like that. But I enjoy watching Welcome to Wrexham mostly for the stories about the fans and the community and things like that. And I'll be honest, that show makes me cry more often than I laugh because they tell such engaging stories about some of the fans. So I think it's a really cool thing to watch, but don't watch it because I said so. I would never make any recommendations on the programs that I try and get people to watch. Because if I tell them to watch it, chances are it's going to get canceled at some point, and then it's just going to be, I'm going to be disappointed. Clarkson's Farm. I love watching Clarkson's Farm. Jeremy Clarkson and Richard Hammond and James May, all the Top Gear Grand Tour guys. I love watching those programs. And then, Jeremy Clarkson came out this week on the show and said he had cancer. And that crushed me. And then, of course, I'm watching social media, and it's been a year since that actually all happened, and he's fine. But I'm still like, is he gonna be around till I'm old? So here I think that for me, a lot of the programs I watch that are UK, except for the Saturday Night Live, the UK Saturday Night Live, I have a hard time with that one because I don't think I understand all the references. The Starmer references are great. I think that I get, but I don't know it just winds up being like, are we going to also have like a Paris UK or Paris Saturday Night Live, or how far are they going to expand this Saturday Night Live thing? So I don't know, but anyway, Jamie, I want to tell you, I really appreciate it. I know it is hot in your room. And by the way, the sweating, you got it handled. I didn't notice any of it. But hopefully you guys get some cooler weather out there. It really has been great to talk to you, and I really appreciate you being on the show. Genuinely, I am impressed with what it is that you've done and what you've built, even before you got a driver's license. Do you drive a lot?
Don't tell my mum about that. No, please. God, they get so frustrated. They're like, how have you not got a driving license? Because I'm paying for it. I can't pass the bloody lessons.
That's great. I didn't pass the test the first time I drove, and then immediately when I passed the test, the first thing my mother did was stick me in a car that had a manual transmission. I had never driven a manual transmission, and then I was on an interstate doing 85 miles an hour, just completely freaking out at the possibility that I'm about to wreck her car. I'm going to kill both of us. This was not planned. So just disappointing. All right, real quick, tell us where people can find you and follow you.
Yeah, so they can just follow me using my name. I think on every platform it's Jamie.McCreedy, McCreedy.
Perfect. Really appreciate you coming on. Best of luck with everything going on. I want to check in with you again soon because I want to know, especially when you make your announcement to run for office. Like I said, I'll figure out how to get over there, and if they're still giving out visas for us here in the States to go to the UK, then I'll come out there and canvass with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
look,
absolutely.
It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and of course, I love catching up with you and other people. So please, let's do it, and hopefully, I'll see you in my town soon. Yeah, that would be fantastic. I love curry. Is anyone serving curry? Yes. There is a fantastic, but there's actually a few. I think there may be 3 or 4 fantastic curry shops, restaurants down the town where I will be hopefully canvassing next year.
All right. Fantastic. All right. Well, let me wrap it up. Appreciate it again, Jamie, being on the show. That's going to do it for episode number 312. Links to all of our past episodes, podcast platforms, merchandise, and social media are available on our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com. And if you think our financial model of giving away free content and entertainment is silly, and you're in the giving mood, why not support the show? You can become a member and get access to this episode early, as well as other exclusive content. Visit members.theallaboutnothing.com or find a link on our webpage. You can also give a one-time donation through the same link. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can call and leave us a message, 803-672-0533, or you can email the show at theallaboutnothing.com. We also have a Discord server, links found on our webpage. Thank you for listening, everyone. You all stay safe, be kind, and
keep your hands to yourself.
The All About Nothing podcast is a product of Big Media and produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow everything Cake the band at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff the producer for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the producer. You can follow me across social media by visiting Linktree/Barrett Gruber. And you can follow Zach King on Linktree/AANZach. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. To find links to our social media, podcast platforms, and merchandise to support the show, as well as past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can email the show at theallaboutnothing.com, or you can call our number and leave a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our sister shows. What the Pod Was That with Carrie, Zach, and myself. Welcome to Wonderland with me. Politically Speaking with Erica, Kirsten, and Emily. And Black, White, and Blue in the South with Dr. Jamil Brooks and Bill Kimmler. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe and punch that notification bell. Thank you for listening, and hear us next week. The preceding podcast is solely owned by the host or hosts and is distributed by Big Media LLC. Copyright 2026.
well, you've made it to the end. You survived the rambling, the tangents, and whatever nonsense we just subjected your ears to. Congratulations. Now that your brain is sufficiently scrambled, how about doing something productive for democracy? Before you go off to forget everything you just heard, do yourself a favor and double-check that your voter registration is actually legit at theallaboutnothing.com/voter. It's about the only way to make sure your vote counts, even if your taste in podcasts is questionable.